They called him the orphaned, barefoot boy of the village. His parents had died years ago, but that night, as he walked alone under the pale moonlight, no one imagined he was about to uncover the purest truth of his life. Tom was 9 years old. He was as thin as a reed, with large eyes and hair tousled by the wind. He lived in a cabin on the edge of the village land, with his Uncle Roger and Aunt Melanie. Tom had lost his parents in an accident when he was 5 years old. After that day, Roger and Melanie had taken him in, as they themselves often said, out of necessity. Whenever Tom misbehaved or fell ill, his aunt would frown and mutter, "If only Margaret's child wouldn't cause us any more trouble." Tom's clothes consisted of a pair of pants, 2 sizes too big, held together with string, and an old shirt that had belonged to his older cousin. He used a patched sack as a backpack. Inside, he kept what he considered his only treasure, a smooth stone shaped like a heart, a worn card with a prayer written on it, and a metal lid he believed to be made of gold. Every morning, he went to the fields before the sun rose, because his uncle said, "School is for the rich." Tom gathered the remaining ears of corn in the fields, carried wood, and fetched water from the stream. He walked barefoot and silently, hoping that if he worked hard enough, one day they would look at him with kindness. But that day, as he returned with a bucket of water, he found his only blanket torn to shreds in the garden. It had been used to cover the goat's pen. When his aunt saw him, she said, "At least it served a purpose." Tom's lips tightened, and he said nothing. He retreated to the corner where he lay, wrapped himself in his patched sack, and pulled out his small card. "God, you see everything, don't you? Please don't forget me," he whispered. The next day, dawn broke with a freezing wind. Tom, who had woken before the roosters, had numb feet from the cold and a sore back from sleeping on the empty sacks. He had no blanket. It lay in the barn like an old rag, and his large shirt didn't cover his arms. As he did every morning, he walked to the well with his empty bucket. He enjoyed being alone, as it was the only time of day he felt at peace. As the water slowly rose from the rusty pulley, Tom looked up at the sky. "If you ever get me out of here, I promise to be a good person. Always," he whispered, as if someone were listening. When he returned home, his uncle was waiting for him with a sour expression. "Where were you, boy? It's your turn to go to Uncle Nate's field today. Say hello for me and help him with whatever he needs." Tom nodded without complaint. He knew that if he said one more word, he would get a slap. Uncle Nate was a grumpy old man who lived alone. His field was an hour's walk away, behind the dry hills. As the sun beat down on his neck, Tom walked on without stopping, ignoring the stones that dug into his bare feet. When he arrived at the field, Uncle Nate greeted him with a grunt and a shovel. "The land doesn't work itself," he said, sending him to the toughest field where not even weeds grew. Tom worked non-stop until his hands were blistered. His stomach growled, but he didn't stop. As the sun set, Uncle Nate tossed him a hard tortilla and a piece of dry cheese. Though it hurt to chew, Tom ate it gratefully. "Why do you come here if you don't get paid?" the old man asked, without looking at him. "If I don't come, they beat me." Uncle Nate clicked his tongue but said nothing else. Tom came home with the sack on his shoulder. No one noticed what he had brought or asked if he had eaten. His aunt was washing clothes with cold water, and his uncle was sleeping with his hat over his face. Only the goats in the pen were bleating, tied up with his blanket. That night, he slept wrapped in his small card instead of his blanket, and, for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel cold or hungry in his dream. He saw himself walking in a barren field and flowers suddenly blooming where his footprints were. But the next day, something big was coming that would shake his life once again. Tom was going about his usual routine: wood, wheat, stream water. One afternoon, while returning with a bundle of wood, he came across a group of men in the square. They were talking angrily. "Someone has broken into the communal store again," said one of them. "They've stolen 3 sacks of corn. This can't be a coincidence anymore," another shouted. "Someone is robbing the village." Tom listened from a distance, hiding. But what he heard caused a pain in his chest. "They suspect the orphan boy living with Roger," one said uncertainly. "Of course. Who else would roam around alone like a fox? No one is watching him. No one knows what he's doing." Tom backed away. At first, he didn't feel fear, but a deep wound, as if he were standing naked in the middle of the village. He ran home, but they were waiting for him before he arrived. His aunt was standing at the door with her hands on her hips. "So, now you're a thief, are you?" "No, Auntie, I didn't do it, I swear," he shouted, tears in his eyes. His uncle came out of the room with a belt in his hand. "Stop lying, you brat. We've put up with you long enough. You'll learn what respect is." Tom tried to run away, but the blow hit his back. He didn't scream or cry anymore. He just stood there, as if he had no strength left to defend himself. That night, he didn't eat dinner or go to bed. Hungry, he curled up in the corner, using the sack as a pillow. And then, while everyone was asleep, he left. He took his sack, his wounded heart, and walked aimlessly along the paths of Willow Creek. Only the moon, the dust of the path, and the echo of the wind accompanied him. He walked until his feet ached, and his eyes could see no more. He fell beside a barbed wire fence in an abandoned field and whispered under the stars, "God, if you are truly with me, tell me what to do because I can't take it anymore." The silence was as deep as the sky, but it was not empty. For that night, as Tom lay sleeping on the dry earth, another saw him. A humble figure, wearing a hat and carrying a lantern, found him at the edge of the field. It was Mr. Sterling, a noble old man wearing clean but worn clothes, a straw hat with broken edges, and carrying a sack of old tools on his back. He had hands calloused by years of work, and a determined yet kind-hearted gaze. Seeing the child lying on the road, he bent down without hesitation. "What are you doing here alone, son? Did you fall?" Tom tried to sit up, but the pain in his back made him curl up. He could only shake his head negatively. "Where do you live? Your mother and father?" The child looked away and whispered, "They're gone. My mom and dad are gone. I live with my uncles." And with a weary wave of his arm, he vaguely pointed towards the village fields. Mr. Sterling furrowed his brow. "What's your name?" "Tom. Tom Taylor." Mr. Sterling looked at the boy as if he had seen a ghost. "Taylor? Was your mother's name Margaret?" Tom nodded. Mr. Sterling respectfully removed his hat. "Your grandfather Walter Taylor was my friend. Men like him are rare these days. Your father Ralph was a good man too. He helped me plow the fields when I couldn't even hold a hoe." Tom looked up in surprise. "So you knew them?" "Of course. I always remembered them with affection. I went to the city for years to look after my brother and only returned a year ago." "You live with your aunts, do you?" Tom slowly shook his head. "And do they treat you well?" The child hesitated. He thought of his torn blanket, the harsh words, the old sack where he kept his treasures. Then he whispered, "Not too bad." Mr. Sterling looked down seriously. Something wasn't right. He remembered very well the field that Tom's parents had once proudly shown him. They had said they had bought it with their savings and left it to him so that one day their child would never have to ask anyone for land. Tom, do you know that the house you're living in and that land were bought by your uncle? I don't know. They only let me stay out of pity. The old man clenched his lips. Something stirred inside him. It wasn't just anger, but that burning sense of injustice, like dry wood, because he knew God's hands weren't tied. Come to my house, son. Wash, eat, and tell me everything calmly. Tom hesitated. He wasn't used to being invited anywhere. Really? Mr. Sterling smiled slightly. Really, son. And tomorrow, if God wills it, we'll see what's behind this, because some things can't stay hidden forever. And that afternoon, as the sun set behind the mountains, the old man and the boy walked hand in hand, carrying the papers toward the village land, the moment when the truth began to breathe. When they arrived, Mr. Sterling wanted to speak with the village mayor. He had kept the papers well hidden, but his heart was resolute. I didn't come here to start a fight, he said in a clear voice. I came to speak with evidence. Curious neighbors began to gather. Tom stood behind Mr. Sterling, clutching his sack as if he might be kicked out at any moment. This child, the old man continued, pointing to Tom, is the son of Margaret and Ralph Taylor, good and hard-working people. This land belonged to them. I have documents proving this, and if anyone has any doubts, the law is clear. In the event of death, the child inherits automatically. A murmur swept through the village. His Uncle Roger and Aunt Melanie appeared from the crowd, pale and tense. That doesn't prove anything, Roger shouted. We raised him. That house belongs to us, by right of care. And by right of abuse as well, Mr. Sterling replied without raising his voice. By right of using a child like a slave and beating him when he defends himself? The mayor called for silence. Melanie raised her voice angrily. He stole corn from the village storehouse. Don't forget that. Then something happened. A woman from the village, Martha, raised her hand. I want to say something. On the day the corn disappeared, I saw Roger leaving the barn with a sack on his shoulder. It seemed strange, but he said, It's the mayor's request. Liar, said Roger. That old woman is confused. Confused, interrupted the mayor. Then explain to me where you took that sack, because I didn't ask for such a thing. The murmurs grew louder, and Roger couldn't say anything else to defend himself. The investigations would continue, but what was clear was that an innocent child had been falsely accused. Tom was trembling, unsure whether to cry or run away, but Mr. Sterling placed his hand on his shoulder. Son, you don't have to hide anymore. God has spoken for you. What about the house? The child asked in a faint voice. Whatever the law says, the mayor replied. This land is yours, and those who refuse to accept it will face justice. That night, Tom did not return home through the back door. Mr. Sterling entered with the village's support and the documents in his hand. He knelt down and whispered, Thank you, God. You truly saw me. Days passed. Roger had to account for what he had stolen, and both he and Melanie had to leave the house. The villagers began to look at Tom with shame, but he did not change. He still went out early, now wearing shoes and a clean shirt given to him as a gift. Mr. Sterling stayed by his side, teaching him how to plant crops, reading the Bible left by his mother. And every night before bed, he said, The righteous may not always win quickly, but they always win with honor. Tom felt deep down that he was no longer an orphan, because God, though late, never neglects. And under the same sky that had once shrouded him in loneliness, he now slept in peace.